Despite plenty of initial difficulties and a lengthy development process in the early 1930s, the BV-138 became an excellent Navy patrol aircraft, operating at farther ranges and for longer periods of time, and capable of taking off and landing from any water source. While the seaplanes were not technically speedy machines, a particularly powerful machine gun arrangement allowed the crews to protect themselves, and the aircraft could even engage in air-to-air combat. The Sea Dragon eventually played one of the most pivotal roles in maritime reconnaissance and patrol for the Third Reich's Air Force while serving all over Europe and occasionally working with the ever-feared U-boat submarine crews, creeping the Atlantic and Mediterranean waters for enemy ships. Loyal to the Luftwaffe until the end of the war, the Blohm Voss 138 seaplane became the final military aircraft to serve the Führer as a once powerful nation crumbled into pieces. Prototype trouble. As the Third Reich rose to power, the aircraft building subsidiary owned by the larger Blohm Voss company began work on a conventional biplane trainer. While the prototypes were designed by engineer Reinhard Muse with the designation HA, he was soon replaced by doctor and engineer Richard Vogt, the military aircraft designer responsible for most of Blohm Voss's most famous designs. Throughout the 1930s, the design evolved into the parent company's first ever flying boat configuration. And almost 2 years after the full-scale model was completed, the first prototype took to the skies on July 15, 1937. The second prototype followed in November when it joined the test program at a research center in northern Germany. However, the engineering team soon noticed that both aircraft were hydrodynamically and aerodynamically unstable. As such, the aircraft structure went under an almost complete redesign. Shortly before the outbreak of World War II, however, Hamburger Flugzeugbau was reformed as the aircraft division of Blohm Voss, and the prototypes changed designations accordingly, becoming BV. The final result was the BV-138A, named after Blohm Voss. The Flying Clog. While continuous tests showed off shortcomings in the aircraft's structure, the manufacturing company's engineers continued to perfect it. However, with the pressing need for coastal transport from top German officers, the first two of a small batch of pre-production aircraft were equipped for service. These two Sea Dragons left Germany in 1940 to take part in the last stage of the Norwegian campaign, officially entering service with the 108th Special Purpose Bomber Squadron. During the campaign, which lasted from April to June, the Allies tried to defend northern Norway, while the local resistance forces fought against the country's invasion by Nazi Germany. Nevertheless, the campaign ended with a German victory, and the Third Reich occupied all of Norway. Once the aircraft returned from the mission, the engineers received troublesome feedback regarding structure and engine problems. These initial A and B variants weren't entirely successful, but the engineers worked tirelessly to overcome the issues. The Blohm Voss C1 variant became the company's main production version, with 228 machines in total. The first rolled out in March of 1941, with a total wingspan of 88 feet 7 inches, an empty weight of 17,860 pounds, and almost 22 feet tall. Officially named Seedrache, or Sea Dragon in German, the BV-138 was rebuilt as a long-range flying boat for maritime reconnaissance, serving as the Luftwaffe's leading seaborne long-range naval patrol aircraft. Built to spend hours searching for Allied convoys and freighters over the deep sea, the Sea Dragon could fly for up to 16 hours, or 2,485 miles when fully loaded. In addition, this long range could be further increased by using rocket-assisted takeoffs. The appearance of the BV-138 had quite the combination of unusual design features, including a twin-boom tail unit and a short fuselage. And apart from operating from coastal airfields, the Sea Dragon could also take off from bases especially made for seaplanes, while the aircraft's long range could be extended using ship catapults. Because of the Sea Dragon's short hull with flat sides and a hydrodynamic step beneath, the aircraft soon earned a secondary nickname, the Flying Clog. Vulnerable and capable. The BV-138C1 was installed with a tri-motor engine configuration, with 3 Junkers Jumo 205D diesel engines generating 880 horsepower each. However, this trio of engines only allowed the aircraft to reach a top speed of about 177 miles per hour at sea level, rendering the BV-138 quite vulnerable to attacks from faster interceptors and fighters. Despite the BV-138's low top speed, the type had an unusually powerful defensive arsenal for a flying boat. Also, to protect the aircraft's upper front and rear, the aircraft was armed with 3 defensive turrets, 2 of them equipped with 20mm MG-151 cannons and 1 with a 13mm MG-131 heavy machine gun. The locations of the cannons and machine guns worked effectively with the standard crew of 5 to 6. With such a particularly well-equipped arsenal, bold pilots sometimes employed the flying boat to actively hunt down opponents. Overall, the aircraft was well liked by the crews, as the BV-138 was so sturdy that it could take on a lot of battle damage and continue flying, and its diesel fuel rarely ignited when hit by fire. All over the oceans. The BV-138 flying boat was used nearly all over Europe. Still, the occupied French and Norwegian coasts became the primary region where the flying boat saw action. From Norway, the flying boats could access both the North Atlantic and the Arctic Oceans. In the earlier years of the war, the flying boat continuously worked with German Kriegsmarine U-boats, and the Flying Clog would spot convoys traveling to the Soviet Union and direct the submarines to their prey. In turn, the U-boats would often supply the aircraft with diesel fuel when needed. Still, with solid armament, the aircraft was able to defend itself well against the Allies. During the war, the flying boat reportedly took down a British Blenheim and a Catalina flying boat in air-to-air combat. Then, after mainly refueling submarines, the flying boat was deployed to Ukraine in the summer of 1943 to help in the infamous 3-week offensive, the Battle of the Dnieper. During the military campaign, the Sea Dragon operated from an airfield in the Novaya Zemlya archipelago with its crews. During the latter half of World War II, a Sea Dragon from the 3rd Long-Range Reconnaissance Squadron of the 125th Naval Air Group traveled to the Black Sea, where it served in combat missions from Constanta until late 1944. While there, the aircraft was sent to the Biscay Bay and Mediterranean theaters of operations, including Biscarrossa, France, and Crete in Greece. Afterward, the unit was transferred to the Baltic Sea region, and as the end of the war came closer, the aircraft and crews capitulated in Denmark. Variants on variants. The BV-138 was used by many Luftwaffe long-range reconnaissance units. While the BV-138 could carry attack missions, most of the type's operations during the war were for surveillance and reconnaissance. However, the flexible Sea Dragon was also used for convoy escort, air and sea rescue, and other roles. BV-138s could even be used to transport fully equipped infantry troops without needing further modifications. Some of these were also used by the Kampfgeschwader 200, an infamous Luftwaffe Special Operations unit. The BV-138 Sea Dragon was also adapted depending on its specialized roles, including an anti-shipping variant that carried a state-of-the-art maritime search radar to chase Allied and Soviet freighters. In late 1942, Blohm Voss even converted one of the flying boats into an aerial demining aircraft. In this modified version, sent to the Luftwaffe Test Center in Travemünde, all weapons were removed. In their place, a magnetic field generator with a coil in the shape of a large ring was fitted for its sweeping mine duty. The end of the war. As World War II raged on, the Luftwaffe, once the world's most feared air force, began to dwindle in power as the Allies joined forces to end the carnage. However, the Sea Dragon remained in service both in the skies and the waters, performing naval reconnaissance missions until the very last days of the conflict. Then, on May 1, 1945, a BV-138 received orders to carry out the Führer's last commands, to remove his last will and testament from his hiding spot in Berlin. While Adolf Hitler had passed 2 nights before, an aircraft from the 3rd Long-Range Reconnaissance Squadron of the 130th Naval Air Group took off to retrieve the document. The aircraft managed to land in the Berlin Lake under a strong barrage of Allied artillery fire, but the crew's commander refused to let the German couriers board the flying boat due to a lack of identification cards. As such, the pilot ordered the Flying Clog's crew to board 10 injured German soldiers in the aircraft, and the seaplane returned to Copenhagen as the remaining Luftwaffe aircraft crashed before them. the German armed forces would surrender to the Allies only days later. After the war, Richard Vogt traveled to America as part of Operation Paperclip and worked in the military and civilian aircraft industry for several decades. He ended his tenure in aircraft production as an overseer of the Boeing 747 design. Thank you for watching our Dark Skies video. Please let us know your thoughts about the German flying boat in the comment section below, and share this video with someone who might like it. Also, for more historical and military content, don't forget to subscribe to this and all the channels in the Dark Documentaries family. Until next time, stay tuned.